Start out just in terms of the structure. The executive director of the House Democratic Caucus, Trent Armitage, is going to speak to the specific details about what we know and what we have heard is happening in Stafford County. And then I am going to manage the run of the show with introducing all of our speakers and veterans today. And they are going to speak specifically to why this is so personally disconcerting to them as veterans who have served this country. And at the end, if you do have questions about what's going on in Stafford County, I would ask that those be directed to Trent specifically. And with no further ado, here is Trent Armitage.
Thanks, everybody, for hopping on. So we've received information from folks that are aware of the electoral process in Stafford County that what has happened is that absentee ballots were delivered to the post office box of the Stafford County Registrar on Tuesday. That number is reported to be 55 military absentee ballots, and those were delivered on Tuesday. They were not picked up by the registrar until Wednesday. And the understanding is that the registrar is claiming that is somehow means that they're not valid. We find that to be absolutely ridiculous. It is not the soldiers or service members' fault that their ballot was not picked up by the registrar on Election Day. And so we are really concerned that this is they're using a technicality like this to withhold counting members of our armed forces.
All right. Thank you, Trent. Next, we will have Democratic Party of Virginia Chairwoman Susan Swecker speak a little bit about the significance of this happening on Veterans Day, and she will speak to our democratic values of fighting to make sure that everyone's voice is heard through the right to vote, as well as how we will stand up and fight for veterans.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for jumping on this call today, particularly since, as many of us enjoy a day off from work. Let's not forget the reason for this holiday. There are nearly 800,000 veterans in Virginia who have stepped up and put their lives on the line for our freedom, and we wouldn't have that fundamental right to vote without their sacrifice. It's disgraceful that the registrar and two members of the electoral board in Stafford County refused to count military votes. I don't know if these are Democratic votes or Republican votes. What I do know is that these are votes of the women and men who serve active duty, and that they should, as Virginia election leaders, do everything in their power to make sure that their votes count. The greatest generation didn't die in battlefields to give people overseas the freedom to vote, to have their grandchildren who served denied it at home. After all, these people are the ones on the front lines preserving our freedom. And with that, Katie, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Swecker. Next, do we have Delegate John Bell on?
Hi, I'm not sure how many of you know my background, but I am a retired Air Force officer. I served in the Air Force for almost 26 years. My wife is a retired Air Force who served for 20, and 3 of our adult children served in military. And I voted my entire adult life after I was 18 by absentee ballot. I can tell you from personal experience, it's always difficult to do this. Frankly, I did it in a combat zone when I served in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, and had to trample through about 2 miles of sandstorm to get to a tent so I could mail out my absentee ballot. We care a great deal as military members that our votes are counted, and frankly, this is, to me, just outrageous that these votes, frankly, aren't counted first. And at no fault to the military members, who hundreds of thousands are currently around the world serving, many in harm's way, to think that their votes could be just thrown away because of an error that had nothing to do with the efforts they put in service to our country and getting their ballots in is just unacceptable. I also wanted to just mention that many people serving in the military have expressed concerns in the past that their votes weren't counted, and in response to that, the Department of Defense actually created the Federal Voting Assistance Program, and it helped to make the process simpler. Some of their surveys showed as many as 67% of military members felt their votes weren't counted, and it's cases like this that really bring that to light. I'll just lastly say that on Veterans Day, when we are celebrating the service of, again, military members all around the world, at any hour of the day, there's someone serving in harm's way somewhere. This is, to me, unacceptable that we would not count their vote. And I hope that we can get this corrected, and I hope that we can come together in future legislative sessions and pass legislation to make it easier for veterans to vote, not harder, and to ensure their votes are counted. During my 2 years in the General Assembly, I know we've had 11 voting rights bills, which were killed by the Republican majority, and I also think that's unacceptable. If we want to celebrate our military, regardless of who they vote for, the fact that they vote is critical to our democracy, and it's, to me, one way we respect the service that they give for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Bell. Do I have Delegate Marcus Simon?
Hey, Katie, I'm here. This is Delegate Marcus Simon, former Army JAG officer, served for 3 years in the Military District of Washington, Fort Myer, Fort McNair. And, you know, it's hard to come up with the right adjectives to describe how outrageous and upsetting it is to learn that members of our electoral board in Stafford County are refusing to count ballots that are in their possession, ballots that they know for a fact got there on time. You know, that these folks that are voting absentee because they are off serving their country and serving us and protecting us, that's the reason they couldn't vote on Election Day. Right? It's not like these guys are on vacation. It's not like they're at Disneyland. It's not like they didn't have time to cast their ballots or didn't feel like getting out in the rain to go vote. They have a really important excuse and reason for not being able to vote in person, and their absentee ballots absolutely have to be counted. I prosecuted, as an Army JAG officer, I prosecuted officers for dereliction of duty when they didn't get their jobs done on time. For the registrar not to get to the post office on Election Day, right? On Election Day, couldn't make it to the post office to open the box and pull these ballots out till the next day. Like I said, there are not enough adjectives to describe how upsetting that is to someone who served. And then, the board, the electoral board. I mean, there's a reason we have human beings and a panel of 3 to make these decisions, because this is not, it's not rote. I mean, sometimes there's a need for a judgment call to be made. And again, you talk about dereliction of duty. What other conclusion could a reasonable person make that these ballots are here? We know they were on time. We know that the folks who cast them did everything they were supposed to do to get their votes counted. To not count those ballots would be unconscionable. And particularly to have this come up on as we celebrate Veterans Day and with the actual Veterans Day tomorrow is just, unbelievably ironic. And I hope that with some help from you all to shine some light on this issue, we can get these electoral board members to do the right thing and count these ballots.
All right. Thank you very much, Delegate Simon. Next, we have Delegate-elect Lee Carter.
Thank you so much. So I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I served 5 years on active duty, deployed twice with the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit. Today is a special day for Marines. It's the 242nd birthday of the Marine Corps. And tomorrow, of course, is Veterans Day. And we know that Stafford County has a high population of folks on active duty and veterans of the Marine Corps. So I find it particularly egregious for anyone on active duty to not have their vote counted, but especially today for Stafford County to say, "Happy birthday, Marines. By the way, your vote doesn't count." It's completely unconscionable to me.
All right. Thank you very much, Delegate-elect Carter. Next, we have Delegate-elect David Reed.
Hi, thank you. Just for those of you who don't know, just following along what John was saying earlier, is that I served 23 years in the Navy Reserves as an intel officer, and so this is very important to me because these men and women whose votes are now not being counted have put themselves and are putting themselves in harm's way every day to protect the very freedom of us being able to vote. And that's very important. And just as important is these 55 individuals have chosen to make Stafford County and to make Virginia their home, and we owe it to them to count their votes. Virginia oftentimes touts itself as being a military-friendly state. This is an opportunity to prove that and count these votes, regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate-elect Reed. Next, I would like to have Teron Sims, who is the chair of the Veterans and Military Families Caucus of the Democratic Party of Virginia.
Thanks, Katie. To echo what everyone else has been saying, I grew up in eastern Prince William County, just north of Stafford, and it's really interesting, lack of a better word, that Stafford, that has a vast veteran and active duty population, would stand the rights of their voters. Definitely curious to see what's going to happen once this gets public. But especially on Veterans Day, it's seemingly ironic and unconscionable that the board will refuse to count the votes of the women and men who are serving our country. As Democrats, we're committed to making sure that every voice is heard and every vote is counted. Whether or not these votes break in our favor, every Virginian deserves to have a say in this election. Fighting for voting rights is a tenet of the Democratic Party. Just last session, House Republicans killed 11 voting rights bills introduced by Democrats, including bills that would make it easier for seniors, college students, caregivers, and the disabled.
Could someone please mute themselves?
Wow. Meanwhile, they passed a voter ID bill that would have made it harder to vote, that would have required absentee voters to fax in photo ID.
Okay, could someone please mute themselves? Okay. I'm sorry about that, Teron. I think we're good now.
No worries. Where was I? Meanwhile, they passed a voter ID bill that would have made it harder to vote, that would have required absentee voters to fax in photo IDs, making it harder to vote. But thankfully, this was vetoed by Governor McCullough. We'll continue to fight to ensure that every vote counts in HD 28. But to reiterate, it's everyone's right to vote. And as Delegate Simon stated, this is of no fault to the voters. This is at the negligence of the voter registrar, and their votes should count. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And next we have Carlos Del Toro.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Carlos Del Toro. I served in the Navy for 27 years. 19 years I lived in Stafford County. I've since moved away, but I still own a home there. My son lives there, and I am completely embarrassed by this situation. I think it's an unforgivable situation for the registrar not to have picked up those votes. That registrar should be held accountable for those actions. It's just inexcusable. And for those two board members not to consider these votes as they break out is also unconscionable. I cannot even try to fathom what's guiding their decision-making in this situation. I'm just so embarrassed by this whole situation. I think every resident of Stafford County should be embarrassed, and I hope they all find out about it, and I hope something gets done to correct this injustice that's been done to military service members. As has been stated before, Stafford County has, so many active duty service members and retired service members as well. It's a great place to live, and I'm just totally embarrassed.
All right. Thank you very much, Carlos. And next we have our Democratic nominee in the 28th District, Joshua Cole.
Good afternoon, everybody. We really thank you for coming aboard today. Just to express our concerns with what's going on here. I am a resident of Stafford County. I've grown up here, a proud product of the Stafford County Public Schools, and my family are military, in the military, and so it's just very disheartening with everything that's going on, with the different groups that are ducking, dodging. We want to make sure that those who are serving and sending their ballots from overseas or just other places in the the United States that live here, that their voices are heard. That was one of the main reasons why we came out to run, to make sure that the voice of the people was heard. And we said the voice had been muffled, and we can see it exactly right now. They are trying to muffle voices. And just to reiterate what other people have said, we don't know which way these ballots can go, whether they go in our favor or not. The fact of the matter is there are voices that need to be heard, and they are being muffled. So we will continue to fight. We won't back down, and we want to ensure that every vote in the 28th district is counted. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Joshua. I want to open it up to any questions. Let's just go ahead, and if somebody wants to jump in, that's fine. But if I get too many people, I'm going to ask people to let Ann know, my colleague Ann at vahousedems.org, ANNE at vahousedems.org, if you have a question, and we'll make sure that we get a question queue going. But for right now, if anybody has a question, I do respectfully ask that you keep your questions related to this call. If you have questions related to other things, I know we have new delegates on, and there's a lot going on right now in the news. Please connect with